Let's talk about expectations. People want us to react, to defend ourselves, raise our voices, and explain everything, to always prove our worth. Modern society constantly tugs at our emotional discipline. Phones buzzing, unwanted opinions everywhere, strangers testing our limits without even knowing it. Life moves incredibly fast. Every minor thing demands attention, and most folks just hand it over. But the second we react on instinct, we surrender our personal power. We let someone else dictate our mood, steal our focus, and ruin the whole day. In my practice, Stoicism offers a totally different path. Real resilience is not about bending the world. It means mastering your internal state. A trained Stoic mind never rushes into a blind reaction. It pauses, watches, and chooses the next move with purpose. In a society hooked on drama, a grounded person becomes completely untouchable. Most people snap back before they even process the facts. An annoying comment drops. A tone feels slightly disrespectful. Someone doubts a choice. The comeback fires off instantly. Harsh words fly. Tempers flare up. The whole mess escalates in seconds. We see this destructive cycle so often, it feels perfectly normal. Honestly, it is the absolute fastest way to throw away total control over your own peace. Firing back immediately means acting blindly, not from mental clarity. It is pure impulse. The feelings drive the car, and rational judgment gets dragged behind. The ancient thinkers saw this exact trap long before the digital age flooded us with distractions. They taught that mental toughness comes down to one thing: the gap between the trigger and your response. That simple pause might only last 3 short seconds. But true freedom lives right inside those seconds. People will constantly try dragging you into their drama. Sometimes they do it on purpose. Other times, it is a blind habit. A snarky comment at work, a passive-aggressive text, a totally baseless critique. View these small jabs as invitations. They dare you to snap back, to argue, and to match their exact level of toxic energy. The second you take that bait, you fight on their turf. Logic completely leaves the room. Blind anger takes over. Instead of owning your choices, you just chase their shadow. As practitioners, we value total restraint. Not because we lack feelings, but because we absolutely refuse to let those feelings run the show. Holding back holds immense, quiet power. Let's think about this together. By pausing, you literally give your brain time to see the truth. Half the time, a supposed insult is just someone projecting their own deep insecurities. A perceived attack is just a clumsy mistake. And yeah, sometimes it really is pure disrespect. But snapping back almost never fixes it. Actually, you usually hand them exactly what they crave. Trolls provoke because they need attention. Flashing your anger proves they control you. Your defensiveness just feeds their ego. But stay grounded. When you consciously choose to wait, the entire game flips. The explosive drama they wanted simply never arrives. Suddenly, the conflict starves. Epictetus reminded us that if someone manages to trigger you, your own mind was fully complicit in the attack. That truth hurts, because it puts the heavy responsibility directly back on us. It means the actual fight is not with the jerk who insulted you, but with your own gut reaction. Our philosophy is not about hiding emotions or faking total numbness. It means seeing the anger without handing over the steering wheel. You will feel annoyed. You will definitely feel the rage bubble up. But you refuse to serve it. Watch it closely, exactly like a captain tracking a storm. The heavy winds are real, But the captain alone decides how to turn the wheel. Stop reacting instantly, and you reclaim your energy. Just think about how many massive fights start with one careless reply. One text leads to another. One nasty sentence spawns a dozen more. Before you know it, you burned 3 hours on a petty argument that was totally pointless. None of those fights actually change the world. They just bleed away your time, your hard-earned patience, and your mental clarity. My practice taught me this. Not every petty comment gets a reply. Not every random critic earns a defense. We do not have to correct every single misunderstanding. Sometimes, total silence hits far harder than any argument. Look, this level of control takes serious time. You and I will still mess up. We will absolutely snap and regret it. We will waste precious energy on things that do not matter. That is just how the training works. The real goal is finally spotting the habit. The exact second you feel that heat rising in your chest, breathe. Buy yourself one solid moment before speaking, before typing, before firing back. Right there, you break the mindless loop that controls the rest of society. Day by day, the gap between the trigger and your action expands. That space builds an unbreakable mind. People around you will absolutely notice the shift. A few will admire the restraint. Others will just be confused. They expect the old, frantic us, the explosive anger, the quick excuses. When that vanishes, it completely rattles them. People soon realize they can no longer dictate your emotional state. But for us, the real shift is internal. Instead of getting dragged around by external chaos, you hold firm. You train yourself to observe first and act only when ready. That single habit alters everything, because the practitioner who commands their own reactions ultimately rules their own life. Silence terrifies most people. Let us look at why. In an era obsessed with instant replies and endless chatter, choosing not to speak becomes a deeply powerful mental practice. Society conditions us to believe we have to answer everything, to defend our egos instantly and fill every awkward pause. But ancient Stoic thinkers grasped a different truth. They understood that quiet is never empty. It is absolute control. When you withhold immediate speech, you break the reactive loop most people are trapped in. Instead of simply reacting to the noise, you actively study it. You starve the drama and let clarity surface. Consider how typical arguments play out. Someone throws a frustrated, emotional punch. The other fires back instantly, and tension multiplies with every word. Both sides desperately try to prove their worth, to guard their fragile pride and win the momentary battle. But the louder we get in that heated state, the less actual communication happens. Language becomes a tool for the ego, not the truth. This is exactly where your silence becomes a weapon. Refusing to mirror their chaotic energy shatters the cycle. They push, fully expecting you to push back. Instead, they hit a wall of calm. That stillness forces the whole confrontation to slow down. Hold your tongue and watch what happens. People start spilling far more than they planned to. The blank space practically begs them to keep rambling. They often leak their true motives completely by accident. The person who just seems so confident starts nervously repeating themselves, dropping pointless details or softening their aggressive tone. Your silence acts as a mirror. It bounces their own chaotic energy right back without a single strike. Philosophy practitioners value this detached observation because it grants you crystal clear vision before making a move. The one who talks less absorbs the reality of the room. Marcus Aurelius taught us that the ultimate response to blind rage is absolute silence. This practice is not about dodging tough conversations or running from real issues. It is a strict refusal to drag your mind down into their chaos. When someone tries to bait you with anger, firing back right away just pours fuel on their emotional fire. Snapping back in the heat of the moment never builds bridges. It only breeds warfare. Intentional quiet injects space into the room. It gives the conflict room to breathe so logic can finally re-enter the picture. There is profound dignity in keeping your mouth shut when dealing with someone committed to misunderstanding you. You and I both know this. Most conflicts drag on because we try convincing people who refuse to listen. Over-explaining drains your spirit and costs you respect. Holding your silence shatters that exhausting cycle. It delivers a heavy warning without a single syllable spoken. It proves your mental peace matters more than winning some petty debate. It shows you refuse to be a supporting actor in their unnecessary drama. This brand of quiet is never weak. It is a calculated, disciplined choice, and it unlocks another massive advantage for your practice: pure mental clarity. While you are busy babbling or guarding your pride, your brain stays trapped in survival mode. You fixate on the next jab, the next excuse, the next flex. But sitting in silence forces your awareness to pull back and look inward. You start evaluating the battlefield from a higher altitude. You catch the shifting mood of the room. You study their unstable emotions and even monitor your own rising pulse. This supreme awareness makes your ultimate response razor-sharp and devastatingly precise. Being quiet guards your vital energy. Every single interaction taxes your attention, patience, and focus. Wasting words burns that fuel fast. Countless people walk around feeling completely drained. Not because they face heavy hardships, but because they bleed energy into pointless, dead-end arguments. Pointless internet fights, debating fools, defending yourself to brick walls. Silence lets you hoard your mental resilience for the battles that actually count. Instead of vomiting your thoughts everywhere, you deploy them like sniper fire. Understand this: practicing silence does not mean taking a vow of muteness. The great philosophers never told us to hide from life. They taught us to speak only when it serves a genuine purpose. The key difference is that a disciplined mind speaks from cold reflection, never raw impulse. Ground yourself in silence first. Then whatever you finally say carries heavy authority. People actually lean in, knowing you refuse to waste breath on small talk or insecurity. Your voice becomes a deliberate tool, not a knee-jerk reaction. Stick to this practice and notice how others change their approach. They learn quickly that poking you will not trigger the explosion they wanted. They figure out they cannot drag a grounded mind into their emotional wreck. Your presence becomes anchored, impossible to manipulate. But the most profound transformation is the one inside you. Biting your tongue no longer feels like suppression. It feels like pure power. Instead of begging for validation, you learn to stand like a mountain in the quiet. Inside that stillness, you find an authority cheap talk can never buy. What do we make of praise, though? A compliment feels nice. Let's be honest. Kind words brighten any day. Recognition feels like a natural reward for hard work. I find nothing wrong with enjoying appreciation. The trouble starts when praise silently becomes a requirement. It feels harmless at first. Someone calls you talented, sharp, or impressive, and naturally you smile. But over time, something subtle shifts in our practice. Other people's approval starts dictating your own self-worth. Instead of living by your core principles, you start acting just to chase that same applause. This is how validation becomes a very soft trap. In my Stoic studies, External approval is just as dangerous as harsh criticism. Tie your identity to someone else's words, and your mental stability vanishes. Your self-esteem spikes when people admire you and crashes hard when they look away. In this fragile state, you are no longer steering your own life. Your path is secretly being carved by the reactions of the crowd. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself that reputation is merely the opinion of others, and human opinions change like the wind. When you and I build our peace on something that shaky, our peace will always stay fragile. Flattery is far more deceptive. While honest praise exists, flattery usually hides a very specific agenda. Somebody tells you the exact words you are desperate to hear. They praise your skills, your brilliant ideas, or your character. But notice how it arrives at a convenient moment. Shortly after, a request drops. They need a favor. Suddenly, a boundary gets tested. Or your focus gets pulled right into their agenda. This is the mechanics of flattery. It drops your shields. When we feel admired, we get comfortable, way too trusting, and often totally blind to reality. The compliment becomes a weapon shaping your choices in the shadows. As a practitioner, my Stoic response to praise is straightforward but potent. Accept it kindly, then drop it. When complimented, I acknowledge the gesture with real gratitude, but I refuse to carry it around. I do not loop the words in my head, and I definitely never build my identity upon them. Your real value never comes from applause. It stems directly from your character and your daily actions. When praise shows up, let it pass through your life like sunlight hitting a window. It is warm, sure, but absolutely not essential. Constant praise hides another fatal trap. Hear that you are exceptional enough times, and you start believing the work is already done. Personal growth flatlines because comfort replaces raw effort. Instead of getting better, your mind starts defending the fake image that applause built. This is exactly why the old philosophers warned us against drinking the admiration. Buy into the hype completely, and you stop auditing yourself. Without brutal self-honesty, actual progress dies. A grounded mind handles praise with absolute discipline. We neither reject kindness nor chase validation. You accept the encouragement, yet keep your boots firmly on the ground. You keep grinding, not for the external approval, but because the work actually aligns with your philosophy. Your actions flow from strong internal values, completely ignoring the hunger for public recognition. You and I know this difference seems timey, but it reshapes your entire destiny. One route breeds pathetic dependence. The other builds total mental independence. Flattery also dies the moment you truly know yourself. Anyone actively studying their own strengths and flaws never needs constant outside reminders. We already track exactly where we are growing and where we desperately need more work. When your identity is locked down internally, cheap compliments simply cannot manipulate you. You hear the praise, appreciate the good intent, and march forward without clinging to that temporary high. Practicing this daily builds a bulletproof kind of confidence. It stays quieter than toxic pride, yet stronger than vanity. Silence doesn't scare you when the applause stops, because your drive never relied on it. You walk your path even if the whole room goes blind. Actually, the absolute most meaningful victories in this life happen years before the spotlight ever arrives. Stoicism demands this quiet hustle because it kills distraction and locks your focus on reality. Cut the addiction to praise, and you become practically unshakable. Flattery loses its master key to your mind, and brutal criticism completely loses the power to break you. Your entire compass points from within, completely ignoring the noisy, shifting opinions of the masses. This level of autonomy creates a heavy, calm energy that people respect. You become a person who cannot be bought with cheap flattery or crushed by judgment. So let's remember that absolute freedom beats any applause the world could ever offer. Then, there are moments when reality suddenly hits fast forward. People rush conversations. Massive decisions are demanded right now. Notifications flood in faster than your brain can process. The crushing pressure to answer escalates every single minute. In these chaotic spikes, the world manufactures a complete illusion of urgency. It feels like every single fire needs immediate water, and every crisis demands your action right this second. Let us examine a trap you and I fall into daily. We surrender to pressure, rushing decisions, and speaking blindly. We let stress dictate our actions instead of clarity. The ancient Stoics I study diagnosed this exact human flaw. They knew that as the world speeds up, a calm mind gains immense value. Fast movement usually hides deep confusion. When we panic, we scramble, not because we grasp what is happening, but simply to flee the painful grip of not knowing. Fake urgency makes tiny hurdles feel massive. A simple urgent email instantly spikes our blood pressure. A loud argument baits you into snapping back immediately. A packed calendar tricks you into thinking pausing means failing. But sprinting blindly never generates real wisdom. Usually it just breeds sloppy errors that steal more hours to fix later. My philosophical training demands resisting this fake rush. When stress spikes, a trained mind hits the brakes rather than joining the riot. Dropping your speed does not mean shirking your duties. It means flat-out refusing to let fear drive the car. When you pace your thoughts, your vision clears. Small facts you would normally blow right past suddenly come into sharp focus. You catch a hidden tone, spot actual motives, and weigh the heavy long-term impacts of choices you almost made on impulse. A still mind catches everything because panic is not blinding it. In a society hooked on endless motion, the one who stops holds all the cards. In my readings, Marcus Aurelius constantly notes that outside chaos cannot touch your inner mind unless you hand over the keys. When madness circles you, the trap is reflecting that madness inside. Your thoughts sprint. Feelings boil over. Your focus shatters. Pausing breaks this destructive loop entirely. Just one heavy breath can reset your whole operating system. Waiting 2 seconds to speak kills the weak words you would have to apologize for. A quick reflection uncovers a much stronger path than simply reacting to pressure. I have learned these tiny gaps are where real wisdom lives. We also slow down to guard our mental fuel. Every outburst costs you dearly. Anger burns straight through your concentration. Frustration eats your patience, and endless rushing wears the brain raw. People are exhausted today not from hard work, but from reacting to absolutely everything. They burned their focus on tiny annoyances, petty arguments, and any loud distraction demanding their instant attention. Week by week, this weak habit bleeds the mind dry. Philosophy teaches us to treat emotional bandwidth like pure gold. Instead of throwing it at every wall, we aim it only at actions that matter. Let us look at our own lives. When we slow down, we expose the fake emergencies around us. Most fights can wait for tomorrow. Most major choices improve if you just hold off. Even raging fires burn themselves out when you give them time and distance. By removing yourself from the immediate rush, you let the actual truth rise up. The crushing disaster simply becomes a standard chore. The muddy decision turns crystal clear, and pacing yourself entirely shifts how people see you. In a meeting full of frantic shouting and nervous sweat, the grounded practitioner commands the room. People respect the even voice, the measured speech, and the solid stance. That anchor of calmness broadcasts pure confidence without bragging. While amateurs scramble to fake authority, your silence proves you already have it. This brand of quiet power is rare because it demands training. You have to trust that waiting beats panicking every single time. As we practice this, pumping the brakes becomes instinct instead of hard work. You start handling heavy stress like a professional. When things heat up, you automatically build a wall of time before moving. You watch, then act. You hold your own steady tempo instead of dancing to the manic beat. Eventually, this grounded pace becomes a rock, keeping you and everyone in your circle safe. People lean on you because your mindset cuts right through the fog. The modern world will always spin fast. Deadlines crash in, arguments get loud, random disasters scream for your time. We cannot dodge reality, but as philosophers of life, we control how we step through the fire. By choosing to pause, you take the crown back for your own brain. Your choices get sharper. Feelings stop controlling the wheel, and the loud, obnoxious noise of society completely loses its grip on you. Surrounded by panic, moving slowly is a supreme show of force. It proves that real power is not about outrunning the crowd, but standing firm like a mountain while everyone else loses their minds. People say things that sound convincing, warm, and perfectly polished. But words are cheap. They are incredibly easy for anyone to fake. Anybody can swear loyalty, pretend they are honest, or offer help when life is easy and costs nothing. So what do you and I take from this? Words are practiced to sound genuine. This is why my Stoic training insists we never judge a person just by talking. You and I know words bend easily, but behavior is incredibly hard to fake. Actions always expose real patterns. Those patterns reveal someone's true character far better than any speech ever could. In my philosophical practice, I see that deep disappointments start here, when we trust pretty words over actual conduct. Someone claims they value your friendship, but they vanish the second you actually need help. A coworker preaches about teamwork, then ducks for cover the moment real challenges hit. Someone swears they will change, but the exact same habits loop endlessly. At first, it feels completely natural to make excuses for these glaring contradictions. We want to swallow the explanation because trusting the apology feels much easier than facing the cold reality. But practicing the Stoic mindset demands a stricter approach. Instead of listening to the stories people tell about themselves, I watch what they actually do. Human patterns rarely lie. One mistake might just be a slip-up, but a repeated action is a massive signal. When someone consistently shows real kindness, grit, and responsibility, those moves prove their genuine character. But when they dodge accountability, shatter promises, or talk trash behind closed doors, that conduct reveals something just as crucial. The early Stoics taught that true wisdom comes from facing bare reality, not clinging to soft, comforting illusions. Once you train your mind on action patterns, all that confusion vanishes. I no longer waste time decoding mixed messages because the behavior gives me the answer. Watching deeds instead of talk fiercely protects my inner peace. So many folks burn massive mental energy trying to decipher what a person truly meant. They dissect talks, replay sentences on a loop, and hunt for secret clues. This habit rarely brings clarity, since language can always be twisted a dozen different ways. Behavior, on the other hand, leaves zero room for debate. If someone actually values your time, their actions prove it. If they respect your hard boundaries, their daily choices will back it up. Tracking behavior radically simplifies human relationships, completely erasing the need for endless guessing games. Marcus Aurelius trained himself to see people with brutal honesty, bypassing the trap of wishful thinking. Adopting this stance forces real emotional maturity. Rather than fighting to fix people through heated debates, I simply let their habits show me exactly who they are. Acceptance isn't approval. It means looking reality in the face and adjusting my expectations to match it. When someone proves their reliability day after day, I can confidently extend my trust. When they consistently show the opposite, I immediately protect my time and energy. And applying this principle forces intense self-reflection. Stick with me here. Judging character by actions means applying that exact same brutal standard to myself. Suddenly, the gap between my own words and my actual habits becomes glaringly obvious. Maybe I preach about daily discipline, but fail to maintain real consistency. Maybe I promise patience, but snap the second I am challenged. Spotting these personal contradictions is not about feeling guilty. Instead, it sparks genuine personal growth. Walking the Stoic path demands integrity, which means forcing your daily actions to match the core values you preach. Studying behavior also kills unnecessary drama. When someone's actions betray their promises, picking a fight over and over again almost never forces them to change. Deep down, most people already know the massive gap between their talk and their walk. Calling them out usually just triggers angry defensiveness or hollow excuses. As a practitioner, I respond quietly by simply adjusting my own moves instead. I drop my expectations, draw harder boundaries, or simply step away when necessary. This tactic shields my peace while leaving them fully responsible for their own poor choices. Over time, this disciplined observation radically sharpens my grasp on human nature. I start catching tiny details I used to ignore, like the specific way a person treats someone who offers absolutely zero benefit to them, or how they handle extreme pressure when the entire plan blows up in their face. Those raw moments expose character far better than carefully polished speeches ever will. When life gets brutally hard, true priorities surface and actions become dead honest. Practicing this level of awareness builds an unshakable, calm clarity. I stop acting shocked when actions betray promises, because my baseline is observation, not blind expectation. Connections become deeply authentic, rooted entirely in what people actually demonstrate, rather than the masks they wear. Over the years, living this philosophy builds profound wisdom and rock-solid emotional resilience. By trusting steady habits over smooth talk, I align my mind with hard reality instead of fragile illusions. And when my read on people stays grounded in facts, my choices grow bolder, my boundaries turn to steel, and my inner peace is much easier to defend. Because life rarely follows our perfect plans. Strategies fail, doors slam shut, relationships shift, and brutal hardships strike completely without warning. Most folks drift along assuming the road stays smooth forever, so when reality finally breaks that expectation, they collapse into shock and total overwhelm. You and I know better. That gap between blind hope and actual facts is exactly where fear and confusion breed. As practitioners, you and I approach life differently. Instead of pretending bad luck doesn't exist, we train our minds for the moment things fall apart. This daily practice isn't pessimism. It's pure, unfiltered mental toughness. Accept that problems are natural, and sudden chaos loses its grip on you. In our Stoic practice, we rehearse potential disasters long before they actually hit. We sit and reflect on losing our comfort, facing harsh criticism, meeting failure, or getting hit by sudden change. By calmly meditating on these exact scenarios ahead of time, we kill the shock when real adversity strikes. A mind that has already wrestled with hardship simply doesn't panic. It recognizes the threat as something already defeated in thought. Many misunderstand this philosophical tool, thinking that focusing on the negative just breeds anxiety. The exact opposite is true. Fear feeds and grows in the dark unknown. When your mind denies that hardship exists, every little curveball feels like the apocalypse. But own the fact that life is deeply uncertain, and suddenly, roadblocks feel manageable instead of terrifying. You stop treating hurdles as tragedies and see them as natural facts requiring a calm response. Plus, prepping for the worst builds fierce gratitude for the good. Know that your current comfort and peace aren't guaranteed, and you start valuing them properly. Ordinary, quiet moments suddenly carry a whole new weight. A calm chat, a strong body, or just a steady routine become things to respect, never to be taken lightly. This mindfulness forces a deep respect for right now. Instead of acting like your setup is permanent, you accept the brutal truth of constant change. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself that outside forces can flip without warning. Money vanishes, status fades, even your tightest relationships can crack under sudden pressure. By drilling this truth daily, he trained his brain to stop holding on so tightly to temporary things. Our Stoic practice demands flexibility. Accept that change is coming, and you adapt twice as fast. Stop fighting reality. Shift your tactics, stand up straight, and keep pushing forward. Let's consider another edge this practice gives us: emotional balance. Expect life to be smooth, and every stumble feels like an injustice. Anger boils up fast because your soft expectations crash into reality. But realize that pain is just the human tax, and setbacks stop feeling so personal. They aren't some cosmic sign that the universe hates you. They are just raw facts, requiring patience, cold logic, and some guts. Seneca taught us that we suffer far more in our heads than in reality. This points to a strange truth. Most dread of future issues comes from fake mental horror stories, not the facts. Sit down, face the worst-case scenario logically, and watch that panic disappear. The dark unknown becomes completely familiar. You learn that even if it all burns down, you can still react with honor and grit. This philosophical training also forces real ownership. Staring down the odds of losing naturally builds calluses on your character. You forge true patience, discipline, and adaptability. These traits become literal armor when things get tough. Instead of folding under the weight, you fall back on the hard values you forged. We hold fast to one rule. Your character is the only asset the world cannot steal. Toughen it early, and crisis cannot break you. Prepping for the worst doesn't mean walking around waiting for the sky to fall. It just means accepting that risk is baked into living. When the blow lands, you don't act shocked. You might feel the sting of failure, but you never let that anger steer the ship. You stay sharp and move with purpose. The storm might hit hard, but you built a solid roof over your head. Day by day, this practice builds absolute confidence. You stop flinching at the shadows, because you know you can handle the fight. Whether the market crashes or booms, your core stays rock solid. We believe this internal fortress is the only way to find peace. A mind ready for chaos stops begging for a smooth ride. Instead, it builds the muscle to chew through whatever mess reality serves up. That muscle turns wild risk into something we can handle. Here is what you and I must learn. Not every battle deserves our blood. Society teaches us that blind persistence is king, that quitting is for losers, that every single argument needs a massive debate or a fistfight. But true philosophy teaches a quieter fact. Real power isn't just taking punches. It's about sharp judgment. Wisdom is knowing exactly what deserves your focus and what is just a parasite on your time. Sometimes the boldest move is shutting your mouth, not proving your point, not sticking around. Sometimes the absolute strongest play is turning your back and walking away. You and I often stay in situations long after they've shown us their true colors. We keep explaining ourselves to someone who has absolutely zero interest in understanding. We circle back to the exact same arguments, hoping this time the outcome will magically change. We sit in environments that slowly eat away our peace. Our minds invent excuses to stay put. We tell ourselves patience will fix it, that one more talk will bring clarity, or that walking away just means we failed. But practicing Stoicism demands brutal honesty. Once a pattern repeats enough times, the truth is obvious. Fighting that same battle isn't courage anymore. It is just attachment. And walking away doesn't require explosive arguments or some grand, visible confrontation. In my experience, the strongest departures happen quietly. Rather than announcing your exit or demanding validation, you just stop participating in games that break your values. You drop the endless debates. You quit chasing approval from those who refuse to respect you. You stop throwing energy at a toxic situation. As a Stoic, your peace of mind is your job. Protecting it usually requires hard distance, not another useless explanation. Epictetus taught that real freedom starts when we stop trying to control things outside our reach. This hits hard when dealing with human conflict. You can never force someone to get it. You cannot make another person change how they act. You can't make anyone value your presence the way you want, but you have absolute control over where you spend your focus and energy. Stepping back isn't some tactic to manipulate someone else. It is a strict decision about how you spend your own time and emotional energy. Let's be honest. Arguments usually drag on just because our egos want that final word. There is real dignity in a silent exit. Both sides desperately try to prove they are right, or the room just gets more toxic. When you refuse to play that game, the fire starves. Your silence speaks volumes. It proves your mental peace is not up for debate. It shows you have enough self-respect to abandon rooms that demand constant defense. Stepping away also builds room for clarity. When we stand too close to the fire, our raw emotions blind us. Every text feels like an emergency. Every slight feels personal. Every misunderstanding demands instant fixes. Distance shatters that fever. It lets you examine the mess with a cold, clear mind. Sometimes that space proves the issue was never actually a big deal. Other times it confirms that packing up was the absolute best move you could make. Now, classical Stoics didn't say to run from every hard thing. They preached resilience and duty. But they also knew that some battles offer zero actual growth. When your hard work just buys you more frustration, the Stoic mindset redirects that effort towards something real. Dropping dead-end fights frees up space for things that actually matter. You get your focus back for real personal growth, solid friendships, and work that fits your core values. We often worry that leaving makes us look cold or heartless. Honestly, it just proves your emotional maturity. You don't walk away because you stopped caring. You leave because you finally respect your own boundaries. Honoring those limits guards your mental health and stops deep resentment from taking root. It keeps you grounded instead of turning bitter from constant fighting. As you practice this, letting go becomes a pure form of freedom. You stop acting like a hostage to every drama that walks through the door. You build the nerve to pick your path on purpose. You still put in the work where it actually moves the needle. But you keep your bags packed for when a place stops offering growth. That specific balance is what builds an untouchable mind. Life will always hand us heavy things, but you and I don't have to carry them all. Walking away isn't quitting. It is getting back into alignment. When you abandon rooms that insult your core values, you guard the clarity of your head and the iron of your character. In Stoic practice, a peaceful life doesn't mean micromanaging every single thing around you. It comes from driving your own choices with sharp wisdom. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is just turn around, drop the noise, and keep walking forward with quiet dignity.